was really lucky for me is I live in Portland, Oregon, which is an apparel town. So Nike is headquartered here, Columbia Sportswear is headquartered here, Adidas has a headquarters here. So there's lots of designers, sample sewers, pattern makers here in Portland. And so what happened was initially I went to a company called Portland Garment Factory that they do samples for, small designers, but then also they do work with Nike and other larger manufacturers. And so I started with them just about the concept, because I knew the first thing that I needed was really just a prototype to test to see if what I was thinking would actually work and support. And so I started there. And then what happened was I realized that I needed more technical. They do great work, but their expertise wasn't in bras, right? And bras is technical. So I was like, maybe I could have chosen an easier piece of clothing to design. But once I realized that, then I hired my own little team. And at that point, I knew enough like who I needed on my team. So I needed a technical designer. I needed a sample sewer. I needed a pattern maker, and I needed a fit model. So like we just formed a little team and started working. And then I was really not in a hurry. So I took actually a lot of time in wear testing and just kind of getting things right. And then one of my designs has a patent. And so that process also took time. So I kind of worked through all of that. But then the question that you say about manufacturing is exactly where I got stuck, because what happened was I had spent all of my savings on doing my wear testing, my patenting, kind of getting the designs right, that when I was ready to go into production, I needed I think it was $100,000 at the time. And number one, I had spent so much money, and then I was like, okay, if I put $100,000 into this, I don't even know how to sell something. Like I'm a doctor, like I'm a full-time doctor. I don't know how to market and sell this. So I got really paralyzed by that, because number one, I didn't have the $100,000, but then I knew that there was more to this than just like creating a product.
Why did you need 100,000? That seems like a vast amount of money.
Right, because I didn't know, I didn't have connections with smaller factories, right? And so the factories that I spoke to at that time required these large minimums.
Right.
And so they wanted I forget, it was maybe 8,000 products or something, 8,000 units total or something. I can't remember, but it was a large investment. And I knew enough to know that I was heading into territory that if I created a product and I didn't have a plan to sell it, then that could be big trouble. And so at that time, I was introduced to someone else who had recently launched an apparel or a line of bras for women with breast cancer. And at the time, her products were complementary to me. Hers were for mastectomy and mine were more for lumpectomy and radiation. And so I licensed to that other company and did that for 2.5 years. And then ultimately realized that I wanted to have more control over my own business and really how I did it. And so I launched independently in 2019. So 2019, really November of 2019 is when we had our first production that was what I wanted and ready to go. Yeah. And so now I've been in business, with MakeMerry as a freestanding brand for about 1.5 years.
Wow. So when you say licensing, what did that entail? Did they manufacture on your behalf and sell your
Yes. Yeah. So it was an exclusive licensing agreement that they could sell my collection and that they would be responsible for marketing and manufacturing. So.
And you gave them presumably a percentage in exchange for that?
No, they gave me a percentage. So when you do licensing, the percentage that you receive is very small, because basically they're doing all of the work of manufacturing and marketing, and then they pay you a small royalty fee.
I guess it's quite a clever way, though, in a way, because it doesn't require a big investment from you, but it proves the business model, and they find your audience. You get to see all the workings, and you get to decide, do I want to continue by myself or not?
That's absolutely correct. And for me also, I knew that I wanted to continue to practice medicine, and I couldn't launch a company and learn all of this while I was doing that. So it did a couple things. Number one, it allowed me to get a product into market while I was still practicing. It also, like you said, taught me the inner workings and the backside, and also gave me proof of concept that I'm oh, these products do really well. And I had created a term on my licensing agreement. And the other thing that was smart was that my husband is in branding, and my husband said, if you license your products to another company, you better make sure that it's called a specific collection, or that it says designed by you, so that if that you don't want to continue after the term of the licensing agreement, you have a brand name that you've established that you can then take. So that helped us as well, because then when we were starting, we weren't starting from scratch. We had some foundation there.
That's so clever. And what about the patent? You mentioned that you got a patent. What made you think that you can patent something? You don't often hear in fashion. And I know that what you're doing is not necessarily fashion as per, let's say, dictionary terms, but it's within that remit of the industry. What made you think that something was patent worthy and it's worth going down that road?
Yeah, so you bring up a really good question, because in apparel, you can change one seam,
Yeah.
and then they're not infringing on the patent. And I have a utility patent. So I have a patent on the function of one of my products. The ironic thing is I'm not selling that product at the moment, because it's more niche. And as I launched myself, we did have it under the licensing agreement, but when I've been doing it on my own, I've been really strategic about making sure that we launched with a very narrow product group, and that I knew that they were going to sell as we're building up. So we will be putting that product back out, but it was the utility of the function of the design that you can patent that with a utility patent, and it is more enforceable than a design patent. But I'll tell you that I had it knocked off, and I had basically no recourse. So yeah, I did it. In retrospect, I might not do it, because I think in fashion, it's more to do with your brand. Like, your brand is everything. And so now we rely more on that, of that we're really serving this need, and we want to be known as the company in the category for sensitive skin. If we design the best bras for women with sensitive skin and bodies that feel great, and less focusing on patents, because it's so easy to get around them in fashion.
Yeah, wow. What was, when you were watching the company that you had licensed your product to sell your product, I mean, it must have been really satisfying to see how it progresses, etc. What was something that you probably thought, wow, is that how it works? Wow, is that what I have to do, when I take over? Were there surprises?
Well, I was a perfectionist, and in medicine, I think it makes sense. If I do something wrong, someone can get hurt with radiation, right? So it's a big deal when things are not right. And I remember our first products came, and we were having a launch party, and there was major things that were wrong with them. And the owner of the company was like, it's fine, nobody notices, just put them on the hanger and kind of do this. And, she was doing little tricks, putting stickers inside them. And I was like, oh my God, but people, if they touch this, they're going to realize that it doesn't feel right. And she's like, it doesn't even matter. Nobody even notices. So that to me was the first day where I was like, okay, wow, I'm entering a different world, and I need to let go some of my perfectionism. And then the other thing is that this was a great quote that I heard from a consultant at one point: if you don't have problems, you don't have production. And I was like, I have found that just to be absolutely true, that you have to expect when you're manufacturing apparel, there are going to be problems. And it's just a matter of, okay, which ones will you accept and which ones are no-go? Because if you say you're not going to accept any issues with your items, they're never going to get to you. So it's figuring out, okay, what is really important to you, and what are the things that you're okay, well, we're going to fix this for the next run, but it's going to be okay. And every time there's just a little something where you're always working through. And that for me has been a real growth opportunity, because I would freak out and be like, I can't sell these. And then you realize this is just how it works in apparel. There's always little things that you're kind of working through with production.
Always. And whenever you solve one problem so that it doesn't happen in the future, there's something else. So
right, exactly.